Okay, so obviously there's a million things that you could do in Photoshop that, you know, I'm not going to cover in these particular tutorials. I'd highly encourage you to look at the Adobe site and kind of go through their things. If you're ever trying to figure out how to do something you can't quite figure out, you might want to go ahead and like just like Google it, like just look it up, so and see what you can find. But if we were done with our project, let's say we were finished with it, we liked the way it looked. Again, this is just like a silly example I threw together for this tutorial. But you know, if it was exactly what I want, there's a couple things I might try to do just to see if I can, you know, like just make sure everything looks really, really good, right? So the first one would be if I go all the way up here to the top of my thing, and I go ahead and add like a one of these adjustment layers. So what that's going to do is it's going to make a whole, sorry, not that. It's going to make like a whole layer that goes on top of everything else, right? So if I click brightness and contrast now, it's going to give me one layer that's going to tag in, and just whatever is visible underneath here, it's going to apply these settings to it, right? And you can see that it gives me a little different icon, kind of like the masking icon, but not exactly. And then I can go over here to the properties menu. If you can't find that, it's going to be kind of hidden under these sliders here. I can like crank the brightness up and the contrast if I wanted to, and try to get, you know, just make it look as good as possible, whatever I can find in there, right? And so that's one way I would make a few adjustments, maybe just to the whole image to make it look really good. It's possible though that like actually what I would rather do, and you can turn that again on or off by clicking the eyeball there, and it'll show you the difference between them. But it could possibly be that what I would rather do is just hit just this, just a cat. You know, I want to change the like kind of lighting on a cat, let's say, right? So again, I would just grab the layer that I wanted to apply that adjustment to and click this button, and I could go, let's go to brightness and contrast again, and you'll see that it places it above the spot that I had selected, and I could like try and change it. But the problem, of course, is that I'm actually hitting all of this junk underneath, right? And that's not what I wanted. I really only wanted it to hit that one cat image. So if you look over here in your properties menu, again, if it's closed, you can click there in this palette. You can see this little icon here that looks like a little square with an arrow underneath it. If I click that, you'll see another little icon show up. That's going to say, okay, this is only messing with that layer. So this adjustment layer is attached to just that layer that's right underneath it. So now any kind of crazy changes that I make are only going to hit this cat that's over here, right? So so I could really like tweak it out if I wanted to and mess it up, and then it's only that one area. Hopefully that makes sense. So you can really get kind of detailed into all of these things. The other thing you can do if you're ever like really trying to organize things is you could create a new layer. So you can make a layer, big kind of I'm sorry, not a layer, a folder basically, or a group, and then you can place things into that group. So if you wanted to like name things like this, so you got, you know, if I put all the cats in one spot, right? I could do that, and then you know, just drag all of these items that are cancel that, sorry, that are related to the cat into that. It's gonna, you can see it's kind of you know, messing with a lot of things, but I can restack the order there, right? And but now the problem I'm having is that this whole folder is like kind of whatever happens up here is messing with everything else that's underneath it, right? So so again, that'd be a place where I might be able to go up here and hit this little icon button, and now it's only going to be attaching that brightness and contrast effect and layer adjustment to that one layer that's underneath, and not every single thing that's underneath there. So these folders can be helpful because then, you know, instead of like a billion layers, you can just organize stuff. But you just got to keep in mind the stacking order. So if that's all good and you're feeling happy with what you've got, then you're ready now to like export things out and get ready to kind of produce them at last, right? And so one thing I would notice about this one is I've got kind of a bummer deal here, where I've got this white square that's actually not really what I want, right? So so there's, you know, a couple things I can do, but the easiest one is just to go over here to this crop tool, and you'll see if you click on that icon, it gives you a little crop thing. I can just click and drag this back here, and it'll like, apply it, and then I hit enter to make it permanent, and there you go. And so now I've gotten rid of that excess stuff. I can crop this thing in. Shouldn't have any extra sort of like white squares or junk laying around that I don't want. So now, I mean, I could save this, which is always a good idea. And then what I've saved is the Photoshop file, which isn't really portable. Like if someone doesn't have Photoshop, they wouldn't be able to like really look at it. So what I want to learn how to do now is how to save it in different file formats. So I can go up here to File, and I can go to Save As, or even Save a Copy, which is a good one to choose. But let's just go to Save As for a second. And it's going to give me all these like different kinds of options in here to save, like as a PDF or a TIFF file. This would be for like bigger files, right? Things that you might want to like be able to go back and edit. But if I was really happy with this, I just want to flatten it out just to go. So let's say I want to send it to the printer. I can go to File, Save a Copy now. And then in here, you're going to see there's all these options, right? Like lots more. And so I'd probably pick JPEG because it's a smaller thing. Go ahead and name it what you want to, and then click Save. And it's going to give me these options here, right? For, it could be a small file or a big file. I'll stick with the largest file. Click OK. And now, if I go into my Finder and let's see, I got to go down here to no name. Open that up. You can see that, okay, I've got the Photoshop file there, and I also have this JPEG, which is, again, this is a 32.9 megabyte file. This is a 762 kilobyte file. So if I just open that now, it'll open it up in my viewer, and I can see, okay, this is the JPEG version of that particular item, right? And so, you can save things that way. Another way that you can save stuff if you want to is you can go to File, and they give you options for exporting things out. So if you click as the export button here, it's going to give you lots and lots of options for that. But sometimes people want to save things as GIF files or Illustrator files, so you can export things out as PNGs if you want the background to be clear. Let's say you just have your cat floating in an empty space and you want the background to be clear. A PNG is a good example of how to do that. So there's lots and lots of things that you can do there. And so, you can play around with that as much as you would like to also. But once you get it kind of saved, then you can work on it. And so a good thing to remember is that, okay, we went ahead and when we set this image up, we went ahead and set it up at 72 pixels per inch. You remember, so if I click on my image size now, you can see it's like 24 inches wide. Or if I click that over to pixels, that'll tell you how many pixels it is. And then it's 72 pixels per inch, which is going to print really badly. Like it won't look very good when we export this thing out. So this would be why if I thought I might want to print this image, I would work at it at 300 pixels per inch. Because if I change this to like a bigger, say I'd make it 600 pixels per inch now, and then I click OK, and I just change the image size on it, it's going to make this image really blurry, which you'll see here in a second. So it'll, instead of it being like nice and crisp and clear, it's going to kind of look a little bit like, especially when you zoom in close, you can see you've got all these like kind of JPEG artifacts and like these little edges that get kind of sloppy, right? So you really have to start with 300 pixels per inch, and then if I wanted to, I could go to File and save it as a smaller image, right? So it's always better to start big and then save smaller. So that's the basics of Photoshop. I hope this helps you kind of get started. Should give you enough to work on for quite a while as you learn the ins and outs.